Happy Pride to all of you beautiful rainbow people. I hope you're enjoying all of the frivolities today on the 29th of July. However, as I have your attention, I thought I'd ask a couple of questions.
Awesome. I love questions.
Now, I will admit this might go down like a plate of vomit coming from a straight white dude. However, I believe these to be reasonable and well-minded questions, and I'd just like some answers, as I'm always willing to be educated.
Most people asking reasonable and well-minded questions don't have to qualify that, but I'm going to take you at your word, so let's keep going.
Number one, why on earth did you change your flag? The original Pride flag, the rainbow, was beautiful. Everybody was encompassed under the rainbow, and it brought everybody under one sort of colour scheme, being the rainbow. And it didn't feel intersectional. Everybody was grouped together.
The Pride flag has evolved over time. As our community and the world have changed, so too have our symbols. The original Pride flag, designed by Gilbert Baker for the 1978 San Francisco Gay Liberation Day Parade, actually had 8 stripes.
Number two, the new flag. I have no clue what any of the new additions have to do with loving somebody of the same sex or both sexes.
I see where the confusion is. The queer community is not limited to cisgender people who only love people of their own gender or of both genders. The term gay is often used to encompass the entire community in the same way that some people call all facial tissue Kleenex or all fizzy drinks Coke. It's not ideal, it's just how the language has evolved. June is LGBTQIA+ Pride Month, and it celebrates all queer identities.
And it also feels really intersectional because it's dividing everybody up.
You keep using that word. I do not think it means what you think it means. Intersectional is the word that we use to describe overlapping systems of oppression. So a Black trans woman, for example, sits at the intersection of systemic disadvantages faced by Black people, women, and trans people. If you're using the word intersectional, you really should be picturing a Venn diagram.
But let's have a look at the new flag. You see, you've got white, pink and blue, and this is to represent transgender people. Now, transgender people believe that they were born in the wrong body.
That's an oversimplification. Biological sex and gender are 2 different things. In cisgender people, their biological sex and their gender align. I am a cisgender woman because I was assigned female at birth and I am now a woman. In transgender people, their biological sex and their gender do not align. So that could be a person who was assigned male at birth and is now a woman, but it could also be a person who is non-binary or gender fluid. Transness is an expansive experience, and the physical body is only part of it.
So, for example, I was born a man, but if I was trans, I would believe that I am a woman, which means that I would then go through many expensive surgeries, take away all of my genitalia, and then ingest many, many pills to give my body the right chemical balance of a woman.
No, being trans does not require any physical changes or medical intervention. Some people do get cosmetic surgery or go on hormone therapy, and some people do not. There is no one correct or specific way to be trans.
I have no clue what being transgender has anything to do with loving somebody of the same sex.
You're talking about the Progress Pride flag, which was designed in 2018 by Daniel Quasar, who added the new stripes in the shape of an arrow to represent forward progress. There's also a 2021 version designed by Valentino Vecchietti that includes the intersex flag. As I said before, the queer community is much broader than just cisgender gay men, lesbians, and bisexuals. Trans people are a foundational part of our community, and they deserve to be represented on our flag.
But then we've got intersex people. Now, I believe intersex people are people that float in between the 2 sexes.
What you're describing are non-binary or gender fluid people. Intersex is a scientific term that describes people who are born with both male and female traits. Intersex is a biological sex, not a gender. So why are intersex people a part of the queer community? Because intersex people are a marginalized group who often face the same type of sex and gender challenges faced by the rest of the community.
If you can pick and choose what gender you are, how can you be gay? That to me just doesn't make sense.
It doesn't have to make sense to you. There are plenty of things in the world that don't make sense to me, and that's all right. I just go on with my day.
You've then got two-spirit. And if I'm being honest, I don't actually know what this means.
This is an umbrella term specific to the indigenous communities of North America. It describes both a gender and a communal role. I did a video about it last year if you want to learn more.
Arguably the most confusing part about the new Pride flag is the black and brown stripes.
The city of Philadelphia introduced a flag with black and brown stripes at the top in 2017 to more explicitly represent the inclusion of Black people and people of the global majority in the queer community. Like most of European and American history, queer history has been whitewashed and skewed to center the stories of white cis men. If we want any hope of building a more equitable future, we must purposefully and specifically include those who have been historically marginalized.
Now, to the OG gays, the gangster gays, the Stonewall gays from the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, how does it feel to have had your movement completely taken over by people that, as I say to most other people who aren't part of your community, have nothing to do with being gay, lesbian, or bisexual?
Remember how I said our history has been whitewashed? The Stonewall gays, the people at the actual riot, were Black and Latina trans women backed up by butch lesbians of color and, yes, some white men. But you've only heard about the white men. I personally think Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera would be thrilled to see their trans sisters being embraced and celebrated. And I also think they'd be extremely frustrated that we are still having these conversations 60 years after Stonewall.
Because these are the loudest voices in your community. And if they continue to be the loudest voices in your community is going to lose a lot of favor with the general public.
Oh no, not loss of favor. Whatever shall we do? Man, we don't really care if you favor us. We shouldn't have to mold ourselves into your definition of a good gay person just so people will stop trying to remove our rights at best and remove us from the planet at worst. Queer rights are already under attack in the UK and in the United States. I'm not familiar with England's statistics, but there are currently 527 anti-LGBTQ laws working their way through state houses across the US. Anti-gay hate crimes rose almost 14% from 2022 to 2023, and anti-trans hate crimes rose almost 33%. More than 1 in 5 of all hate crimes in the US are now motivated by anti-LGBTQ sentiment. So we don't really care about your favor when we are just trying to survive.
Nobody's got really any issue with those three, but transgenderism and intersexuality and asexual and non-binary and two-spirit and all of these things, these are a lot of things for people to actually absorb, to understand, and also to then be forced to accept.
So those of us who are cisgender and have one of the approved 3 identities should just, what? Leave the rest of our community behind so that we can earn your favor? That's not how this works. None of us are free until all of us are free. And man, no one is forcing you to accept anything. If gender non-conforming people make you uncomfortable, that's all right. But that is an inside feeling, not an outside one. And you cross the line when you start trying to dictate how other people live their lives based on how you feel about it.
And if it was just the original LGB community, you'd have no issues whatsoever. But the new additions, these newfangled 21st century gays, they are losing you favor with the wider populace.
There's no such thing as the original LGB community. The Esther Queers tagline is, "We have always been here and we have always been queer," because history is full of queer people. Not just cisgender gay men, lesbians, and bisexuals, but all kinds of queer people. And we have, more often than not, faced issues with the dominant heteronormative culture when we're just trying to live our lives. So this threat of losing favor is pretty empty because we never had it to begin with.
Now, that might be an unpopular opinion, but it just kind of, it very much feels like that from the conversations that I have in a pub.
Y'all spend way more time talking and thinking about us than we do you. It's weird.
You can't, when you start trying to force to change language and things like this, that's going to ruffle up some people's feathers.
Okay, let them be ruffled. Language changes over time. That is the beauty and power of language. It's meant to evolve as we do.
Because, let's be honest, you should be proud of who you are as an individual.
Thanks. We are, as individuals and as a community.